Hello, good day, everyone, and thank you for joining in for episode number 26 of Unsung Heroes of the Cloud, where today Mike and I are joined by Josefina Van Thienen, who will talk to us about how Microsoft partners with startups and scale ups to help them scale their business using the Microsoft Cloud. Josefina, welcome to the show. How are you?
Hi, Niels. Hi, Mike. Thank you so much for
Hey,
having me today. It's an honor to
hey,
be
good
here.
morning. Good morning to you, and Niels also. Good morning to you.
Yeah, good evening,
Josefina?
Mike.
I thought it was Josefina,
Yeah, but no,
the
it's
Flemish
Josefina.
Dutch pronouncement. Oh, okay,
Yeah.
we say Josefina. Okay, sorry. I
Yeah.
thought you were half art strategy going on here, like that side of the world, not the other side of the world, like half Belgian, right?
Exactly. So it's like my name is that, right? Like Josefina is in Spanish because I live in Argentina, but I used to live in Argentina. But Van Tienen is Belgium because I'm that part, like half of my family is Dutch. So yeah.
Best of both worlds, and
hmm
Yeah.
And now
So,
I'm in Silicon Valley in San Francisco, right? So all over the place, a global citizen, as we say.
yeah, the
very
Belgians are
nice.
invading Silicon Valley.
Yeah.
So you want me to pack my bags and come over there? You don't want
You
to,
should.
like have an exodus
No,
in Silicon Valley.
come on
Was I
over,
that
Mike.
right?
It'll be fun.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
yeah, that's what you keep telling me.
Yeah. So,
Yeah.
talking about fun, before we dive into startups and scale ups, Josefina, what do you like to do for fun?
Sure. I would say like the thing that I like the most is doing kite surfing, right? So being in the water here in the bay, there's a lot of wind. So I go nearby, San Mateo and just enter the water with my kite, my board, and just that's what I like to do for fun.
And so, for people who don't know, if you go kite surfing in San Mateo, are you in the ocean or are you in the actual bay where it's a little more protected?
It's in the bay. Like you can
Okay.
go to the ocean, but I go to the bay side. So it's more protected. You still have like current and stuff, and you need to be careful, but it's pretty well protected. Yeah.
Okay. And isn't the water cold if you fall in, or do you just not fall in?
Yeah, you definitely need a suit, a wetsuit, right? Like you
Yeah.
don't want to be without a wetsuit here in the Bay Area, which is not great. I kite surf it in other places in the world, that it's warm. And I'm just like, why I live here where it's cold? But it's great.
I thought
Well,
San Francisco was a warm place and not a cold place. Is the Bay Area water that cold?
it's
Yeah,
connected to the Pacific Ocean. So, and the Pacific Ocean is fairly big, so it's cold. It's
Yeah,
not like the Mediterranean Sea where you have like an
yeah,
inland sea that keeps warm.
yeah,
that way.
And plus,
Sorry.
yeah.
San Francisco, the city, like I like to tell this to all people because I have my parents-in-law staying over. Bring a sweater to San Francisco because California can be warm, but San Francisco has like this microclimate and it's like continuously 15 degrees Celsius in San Francisco.
Yeah,
Oh, okay. Then that makes sense that she's wearing a wetsuit.
yeah. And it's crazy, like you can see the fog. Like for example, this weekend I
Yeah,
was outside San Francisco, and you will look San Francisco and you can see how it's covered by like a fog
yeah, and then
that might
sometimes
seem
you only
cold.
see like the tips of the bridge
Yeah,
sticking out
Yep.
and nothing else. Yeah, okay. I
exactly.
always thought they did that only for movies or something, just to add to the atmosphere.
Uh, no, I have a picture with my parents at the Golden Gate Bridge, and the only thing you see is my parents in fog. You don't even see the bridge.
Okay, nice. Just like a
So,
normal Monday morning in Brussels.
so given we're talking San Francisco, and I think Silicon Valley is still startup mecca around the world.
hmm
Josefina, before we jump into how Microsoft helps them, like explain to us what you do at Microsoft and how it comes that you're so interested in startups and scale ups.
Yeah, sure. So I'm a business development manager in the high tech team, right? And what that means basically is that we work with high growth scale up startups
Hmm.
that are already later stage to partner with Microsoft and understanding like how the Microsoft ecosystem can help that startup to keep growing on our cloud, right? So we that's what we do for work, like on my team. And I got very interested about this because I was a founder myself, right? I came to the US to do my MBA, and during my MBA I founded my company. And I'm always passionate about founders and creating and disrupting innovation. And that's why I wanted to come to San Francisco and founding like this kind of amazing team within Microsoft was really, really a gift, right? Because you don't think about startups when you think about Microsoft, right? Or when you think about startups, you don't think about Microsoft. And it's very important, like incredible when you uncover what Microsoft has to offer for startups, especially B2B startups. It's quite impressive, the things that you can do as a startup to grow with Microsoft.
And so, what are some of those things? Like, why, if I'm founding a company today, why would I consider partnering with Microsoft to build and grow my business?
Sure. So at the earlier stage, right? Like when you're doing your product market fit, or even like doing an MPV, Microsoft has a lot of resources that offers to the earlier stage startups, like the Founders Hub or Microsoft for Startups. And last year they did this. They launched this Founders Hub, which basically is like a SaaS platform where you have a lot of educational content and support to go through all the stage of creating a startup, right? Creating a business, finding, the problem that you want to tackle, finding the product market fit. Once you have that, okay, how you do an MPV, how do you scale that, right? How you grow that, and because Microsoft itself was a startup before, right? Like 50 years ago, whatever. Like we do have all those different resources and tools that you can leverage. And it's important, I do think, for startups that are thinking to enter the enterprise space, is kind of key. And this weekend, actually, I was in a conference and I met a founder, early stage founder, that he was doing kind of like a very specific feature that helps coding, right? And he told me, like, I'm building on Azure because I wanna partner with GitHub. And I'm just like, that's so clever. That's how every founder should be thinking about their future vision, on how, like, which clouds you choose. It's kind of like important since the beginning, for your later stage kind of like strategy on where you want to, what customers do you want to tackle, which tools do you want to use, and you have a long list of tools that you can leverage at Microsoft.
Okay,
That's true.
cool. And
We have fast. That's true. Yeah, I hear that from a lot of people.
yeah, and I think with Founders Hub, there's the expert network, and I'm part of the expert network, so startups can book a consultation with me. I think that's also very important, that there's like a couple hundred Microsoft people who are registered, and if you want to talk about a particular thing, in my case, that's Kubernetes. I'm there to support you, but you can get business help. There's like people from our partner network that can explain how to partner in B2B situations. Like, I think it's a really great system.
Yeah,
And
totally.
doesn't it also come with free money?
Yes, you also have like free credits to build on Azure. And you also at some point, when you're later in that stage, like kind of like early stage, you can access investments too. So and investors. So it's very, very interesting to be part of the Founders Hub.
Okay, so you alluded to later stages, like you mentioned Founders Hub, which is for like the earlier stage startups. So what's next in a startup's path as they partner with Microsoft?
Sure. So one of the biggest, I think, strategies that we have here is the co-selling. Microsoft has thousands and thousands of sellers, and how you can, when you already found a product market fit and you need to scale, it's not easy to enter, the enterprise space. It's not easy to go to market by yourself as a startup, right? If you don't have a name, if you don't have like the security compliance, like there are a lot of things that you need to have in order for an enterprise to buy your product. And Microsoft helps you get ready to that and go to market with Microsoft, and having, thousands of sellers that are aligned to selling your product. It's kind of like magic, right? Having seriously, like I do think that a lot of B2B founders in the earlier stage underestimate like how difficult it is to enter that ecosystem of partners and enterprise. Like it's not an easy go to market, and Microsoft has like years of doing that, and we have that expertise, and we really want to partner with startups to do so. So I think that's one of the interesting one. The other one is also like building with something that I think all the time is Microsoft has it's building products all the time and innovating products and innovating, and probably there are founders that are also innovating in that one feature or that one technology. So how can we co-develop, right, co-innovate together? That's also very interesting, and there are some cases that are very successful, and I think like as a founder it's good to think about that. Other things is also like we have our verticals, right, like healthcare, and you have manufacturing. So there is very knowledgeable people and with expertise in those.
There was an ambulance. That happens a lot here.
Someone is dying. No. So like having all those people with those expertise, it's also key for advance a partnership with Microsoft and going to market like with a stronger name.
Yeah, because I come from one out of the ISV world, and I work a lot with the founders of together with the PDMs that we have, so the development managers, and for them there's a lot of collateral to be found on how to go to market, how we can help them with additional benefits to go to market, and indeed the things that you've been explaining have been very useful for a lot of success factors that we have in Belgium and even worldwide that we're working with together. So that's indeed, it's not a lie. I've seen it from really, really close by, and it's really, really cool to see what we're doing there. Specifically, all the other benefits like the additional credits that you get and the growth that you can have in which stage you are for your specific part, which is cool.
I say, let's not underestimate just being on the Azure Marketplace.
Yeah.
Like,
totally.
just the discoverability, like if a company is looking for, let's just say, firewall, and they are already using firewall brand Y, and they look it up in the Azure Marketplace, and if they see you there, and let's imagine you're somewhat of a smaller company, you don't have the sales force to work with each individual customer, just being on the marketplace, and that helps with discoverability and credibility.
And also giving you the additional entry point to those other companies, because typically what you don't have to do anymore is go through the process of a request for purchase or request for information, because typically you have to go through this entire process of RFP, and then it needs to be built separately. Now the end user can just click it and it will get built on their own Azure subscription for that matter. And that's the biggest selling point, because there you have the additional value for most of the people for the marketplace, that is. Because it just comes into your Azure subscription or your Microsoft agreement that you have where you already buy our products. We do the billing for them and done with, which is really, really cool.
Yeah. And as a high scale, startup, you want that sales cycle to be smaller, right? And faster. So definitely, and that's what we do kind of like on my team, right, on with later stage startups is we want to ensure that you grow faster with Microsoft, and that's those are kind of like the use cases that help a lot to kind of like keep growing and keep scaling.
Okay, cool. So somewhat of a curveball question, but I think we've been talking a lot about helping a startup grow. Is there something that we do with startups to help them integrate more closely into our products? Let's say we've talked Azure Marketplace, but let's say Teams, Power Apps, Xbox, Bing. Like, how do you think about those partnerships?
Yes, those are great too. For example, Teams. I've been seeing a lot of requests of just like integration with Teams, because there are a lot of new products in the startup world where it's like for ideation, for example, right? Like a new canvas, or for tracking, whatever it is. Like Teams has it's a multi-platform, right? So having that integration is very important for discoverability. So definitely integration with our own kind of like product stack. It's really, really important too for the startups and for Microsoft too, because that's how we make our products, better for our users.
Yep. And I think an example, and it's not a startup anymore, but the recent announcement about Netflix partnering with Bing Ads for their platform, like, it just goes to show like how we can work together to help you scale your business.
Totally. And yeah, totally. And another thing that I think we didn't mention, but just like the broadness, like we have from gaming with the Xbox, right? With LinkedIn, with GitHub, with like Microsoft itself, all, the business products, the modern workplace. There's so many different, points that you can tackle that it's really, really interesting also for the founder itself, or for the, higher scale CEO and CRO to look at Microsoft to partner with.
And maybe as somewhat of a confront. No, I can't find the word, but maybe a weird question. But we've talked about a lot of the gifts for Microsoft. Like we've talked about partnership, co-sell, marketplace, integration with the products. Like,
Mm-hmm.
what does somebody in your shoes ask in return from those startups in order for them to get all of those benefits from us?
Yeah. Well, basically, we obviously want you to grow with Microsoft, right? So being on the Azure cloud is kind of key for all of this. Um, Using our technology to grow, it's what we're asking there. So it's like, okay, how, the how we can grow together is a win-win situation for both of us. So yeah, being in the Azure cloud is kind of the most important, piece of it. But none of that, it's, nothing will work if we don't do all the other stuff, right? So
Yeah.
it's important for us to grow on our platform, that also it's like great, using Azure, and you know better on like all this digital natives and cloud native, that can use our technologies, our app innovation products. And there is a lot in there to uncover too, from a technical perspective. There are also some cases where it is a technical decision, right, to come to
Mhm.
Azure, not only a business one.
Okay, understood. And like, if you're working with those companies that made another decision in their early cycle and they started growing with either an on-prem data center or with one of our competitors, how do we help them come to Azure? Because if they want to get the benefits, we have to grow together. How do we support them?
Sure. So we definitely have a lot of programs that we help doing that migration, and working together to do a consumption plan and a planning on how that it's going to work. And we do have programs that help not only with funding but also technically, and we bring our partners, right? Like we usually work with our partners to make and ensure that that transition is smooth, and that it's secure, that it's not only compliant but also like well architected.
Okay.
Yeah,
And that's basically my job.
that's your job, Niels. Yeah, I was going to tell you can answer that question. Yeah, actually, Niels, let me ask you, like, have you seen, or can you give us an example of kind of like a tech, like why a high growth startup will choose to work with Azure technically?
So
Like, what have you seen?
I think one of the main reasons that I've seen recently with a couple of the customers I work with is our strategy around open source software. Like the
Mm-hmm.
way we show up in the open source community, and I'm pointing specifically towards Kubernetes, but it's our broader strategy. A lot of companies that I've worked with and a lot of startups really appreciate how we show up in the open source community, and not just around contributing back to a Kubernetes and a containerd and an Envoy, but also working with customers to release new solutions. Like I was working with one of my customers, actually a high growth startup that is still in a stealth mode, but they needed a specific scheduler to be available in Kubernetes because they wanted to do better spreading of workloads between
Mm-hmm.
spot and non-spot workloads that did not exist. And we had our engineering team work with the customer to develop a scheduler in Kubernetes that can support this. But rather than just do this for this one customer, this was released out in the open, in open source. Brandon Burns tweeted about this, and this innovation is now available for everyone to consume. And
That's
I think it's a,
amazing.
it's a new Microsoft, but those startups, the really technical people, already notice how Microsoft is showing up. Like
Yeah.
another story is I was working with a customer that had a question about a feature, and I told them I don't know the answer, but I know some people in the product team. You might have heard of Cecile, and they were like, "Oh, Cecile, yeah, we talk with her every week during the office hours." And I'm like, "You can ask the question. Like, we're
Yeah.
out in the open."
Yeah, that's amazing. And that's one, those are the stories that I love the most, right? Like it's when it's not only like a business alignment, but also a technical alignment. I
Mhm.
think
Yeah,
that's a great, yeah, that's a great story.
yeah,
Yeah, thank you.
win-win for everybody.
Exactly, exactly. And it
So,
also like we have the most trusted. I don't want to miss this part too. Like we're a very trusted cloud, and that's something that is also very valued.
yeah,
I just
true.
wanted to say
Yeah,
that.
yeah. Well, you and I work together with one customer that chose Azure for our government cloud abilities.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
So that's very important.
yeah, true. So we're nearing the end of our time here together. I just wanted to ask, do you have any closing thoughts towards founders that are watching this live stream, like closing thoughts for them?
Yeah, I would say think if you're in the early stage, think down the road. Obviously, you have a lot of problems today to solve, but think that the road, which is the cloud that you want to choose, is not only it's not only a vendor, right? Like the cloud is going to be a very important part of your business model.
Mhm.
Think about your cloud as a partner, right? As a partnership. So that's the first thing that I would say for the earlier stage. And for the later stage, like probably if you're on our competitors, also thinking about Microsoft on what are the points that you could leverage Microsoft, from technical, from partnership, from co-selling together, from co-innovation together, and yeah, let's talk.
Okay. Yeah,
Okay.
let's talk. I think that's the best way to close this out. And
Exactly.
Josefina, I want to thank you for joining us today. This was
Yes.
phenomenal. Next time you go kite surfing, just drive further south for 5 miles, and we can grab lunch together.
Yeah.
But thanks
Or
for being here.
or or hope for good wind and just fly by again.
Yeah.
Yes, just fly by.
Yeah.
This
Cool.
was a lot
Um,
of fun. Thank you so much for having me. This was
Thank you
oh,
for joining. It was very enlightening, and I hope our viewers learned a couple of things and that they can start up something new
yeah,
exactly.
and maybe
cool.
scale up their business together with
Thanks
us.
everybody for joining.
Okay. All
Thank
right. Bye.
you.
Bye, people. See you
Bye.
all in a couple of weeks. Bye bye.